The studio lights felt unusually harsh that morning, casting long reflections across the polished floor as the audience settled into their seats. There was a quiet buzz in the air, the kind that builds when something or someone important is about to happen. Producers moved quickly behind the cameras, whispering into headsets, checking cues. Everything was running on schedule, but there was an underlying tension that no one openly acknowledged. Keanu Reeves sat calmly backstage, hands loosely folded, his posture relaxed but thoughtful. He had done countless interviews over the years, yet he never treated them like routine. For him, every conversation mattered. Every word held weight. Today was supposed to be simple. Promote his upcoming project, share a few personal reflections, maybe exchange some light humor. Nothing unusual. A production assistant approached him with a polite smile, signaling it was time. He stood up, adjusted his jacket, and took a slow breath before walking toward the stage. As he stepped into the spotlight, the audience erupted into applause. It wasn't just admiration, it was genuine warmth. Keanu acknowledged them with a humble nod, his familiar half-smile appearing as he took his seat. The hosts greeted him enthusiastically. The atmosphere started light. They spoke about his latest film, his dedication to his craft, and his reputation for kindness. Keanu answered with his usual sincerity, never exaggerating, never trying to impress. He spoke like someone who had nothing to prove. The conversation shifted naturally, touching on his career journey. Clips from his past films played on the screen behind them, drawing cheers from the audience. Keanu watched quietly, almost detached, as if observing someone else's life. Then the tone began to change. Joy Behar leaned forward slightly, her expression sharpening with curiosity. At first, her questions seemed harmless, probing, perhaps a bit more personal than usual, but still within the realm of a typical interview. She asked about his private life, his long periods away from the spotlight, and how he coped with loneliness. Keanu responded respectfully, though his answers grew shorter. There was a subtle shift in his body language. His shoulders tightened just a little. His gaze became more focused. The audience sensed it, even if they couldn't quite explain why. Joy pressed further. She brought up past tragedies in his life, events that he rarely discussed publicly. The room grew quieter. The other hosts exchanged brief glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the conversation continue. Keanu paused before answering, choosing his words carefully. I think some things, he said gently, are better held with respect. There was a moment of silence. It could have ended there. It should have ended there. But Joy didn't stop. She made a remark, one that crossed an invisible line. It wasn't loud or aggressive, but it carried a tone that felt dismissive, almost insensitive. She questioned his tendency to avoid certain topics, implying that public figures owed complete transparency to their audience. The words hung in the air. Keanu's expression changed. Not dramatically, he didn't raise his voice or show anger, but something in his eyes shifted. The warmth faded, replaced by a quiet firmness. I don't believe, he said slowly, that anyone owes their pain for entertainment. The audience reacted with a soft murmur. The tension became palpable now, undeniable. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, as if unsure where to focus. Joy attempted to continue, but the rhythm of the conversation was broken. Keanu sat still, composed, yet distant. It was clear he had drawn a boundary. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then, with calm deliberation, Keanu placed his hands on his knees and stood up. At first, it seemed like he might simply be adjusting his position, but when he turned slightly away from the table, the realization spread across the room. A ripple of surprise moved through the audience. One of the hosts tried to lighten the moment, offering a quick comment to ease the tension. But Keanu shook his head gently, his expression kind but resolute. I appreciate being here, he said, his voice steady, but I think I'm going to step away. There was no anger in his tone, no accusation, just clarity. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument could have been. He nodded once more, offering a small, respectful gesture to the hosts and the audience. Then he walked off the stage. The cameras struggled to follow him at first, unsure whether to continue filming or cut away. Producers whispered urgently in their headsets. The audience remained quiet, processing what they had just witnessed. Backstage, Keanu moved at a measured pace, neither hurried nor hesitant. A staff member approached him, clearly concerned, asking if he was all right. He offered a reassuring smile. "I'm okay," he said softly. "Just needed to step out." Meanwhile, on stage, the hosts attempted to regain control of the show. The atmosphere felt different now, fragile. Joy looked momentarily unsettled, though she quickly composed herself. The other hosts shifted the conversation to a neutral topic, but the energy never fully recovered. Viewers at home could feel it too. The moment lingered, replaying in their minds. It wasn't dramatic in the traditional sense. There were no raised voices, no confrontation, but that's what made it powerful. Backstage, Keanu took a moment alone. He sat in a quiet corner, reflecting. For him, the decision to walk away wasn't impulsive. It was intentional. A choice to protect something deeply personal. A producer approached him shortly after, apologizing for how the interview had unfolded. Keanu listened patiently, nodding. "It's all right," he replied. "These things happen." But it was clear that, for him, it wasn't just another moment to brush off. It was a reminder of how easily boundaries could be overlooked. On stage, the show continued, but the earlier incident cast a long shadow. The hosts eventually addressed it briefly. Acknowledging that the conversation had become uncomfortable, there was an attempt to move forward. But the authenticity of the moment couldn't be undone. As the episode came to an end, the applause felt different, more subdued, more reflective. Outside the studio, news of what happened began to spread quickly. Clips circulated online, sparking discussions across social media. People debated what had been said, what should have been said, and whether the line had truly been crossed. Many viewers praised Keanu's response, not because he walked off, but because of how he did it, with dignity, without hostility, and with a clear sense of self-respect. Others focused on the broader issue, the expectation that public figures must constantly share their personal lives, even the painful parts, for the sake of entertainment. Backstage, Keanu eventually prepared to leave. As he walked through the corridor, a few staff members quietly expressed their support. He acknowledged each one with gratitude, his calm demeanor unchanged. When he stepped outside, the world felt different, quieter somehow. The noise of the studio faded behind him, replaced by the distant hum of the city. He paused for a moment, looking up at the sky. For him, the day wasn't about conflict or controversy. It was about something simpler, yet more important. The right to choose what to share and what to keep. Back inside the studio, the lights dimmed as the show wrapped. The hosts gathered their notes. The crew began dismantling equipment, and the audience slowly filtered out. But the moment remained, etched into everyone's memory, not as a scandal, but as a statement. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful response isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's simply knowing when to walk away.